The life and times of a real mortician. I grew up in a relatively normal home setting. My father was a salesman and my mother was a homemaker. Two things stand out. I had an inordinate fear of death as a child, and my mother often spoke about the mortuary her father ran in a small town in northeast Arkansas. I was both terrified and intrigued by my mother's stories about the mortuary. I later figured out she probably almost never went to the funeral home for any reason. She didn't know anything about even the most basic operation of a mortuary. I wanted to be a doctor when I was a kid. I came to realize that I didn't want to spend an extra 8 to 12 years in college, and I wasn't that smart. I wrote my grandfather one time and asked him how I could preserve various dead animals and organs I wanted to keep as specimens. He wrote me a nice letter back and told me to never ever even think of becoming a mortician. He told me the hours and pay were horrible, and I should avoid that career field at all costs, then gave me instructions for using formalin as a preservative. Fast forward to my senior year in high school. By now, I'm morbidly curious about death and dying, and still terrified of the same. On a whim, I drove to the nearest mortuary near my home and asked for a job. To my utter amazement, they hired me to work nights and weekends at the mortuary. The rest will be covered in some more future stories of mine. I wanted to be a cop after working with cops at different crime scenes as a mortician/coroner's representative. Back in those days, LAPD was the shit. I was raised on Adam 12 and Dragnet. As soon as I turned 20 and a half, I applied to LAPD. I did very well on all of the testing, getting a 98 on my oral and a 95 on the written test. At the time, I was a fat slob. I ate, drank, and smoked to excess and failed the LAPD physical miserably. So I went to mortuary college and began my career as a funeral director, licensed embalmer. Fast forward again 20 years. After going through a divorce, I met my wife of 28 years and told her about my dream of becoming a cop. By this time, I had lost 60 plus pounds, quit drinking and smoking, and was in excellent shape. So I put myself through the police academy at age 40. I enjoyed every minute of that job, as my future stories will attest. I became a mortician out of morbid curiosity, pure and simple. At times, the career was interesting. Most of the time, it was painfully boring. If you ask a young man why he wants to be a cop, he or she will tell you to give back to the community, or I want to help people. I think those answers are bullshit. If you want to give back or help people, go work in a library or volunteer at a shelter. If they were being honest, they would reply, I want to get out there in the shit and put criminals in jail, maybe kick a little ass too. Why else would you want to get into a violent, thankless, and dangerous career? As far as my mortality, I know I'm going to die. I don't want to die, but I am more at ease with death. I have only seen a small handful of dead people with horrified looks on their faces. I used to be religious, but being divorced and enduring the wicked red witch from hell for 8 years was proof to me that God hated me. So we stay out of each other's way. I want to die peacefully in my sleep, like my uncle, not screaming like my aunt in the passenger seat next to him.